Good morning. I'm Scott, and I'm so excited to meet with you for our podcast today, Congruence, where faith and business come together. And I am sitting here at the studio at BD Local Media on Tacoma Avenue in beautiful, wet, rainy Tacoma, Washington. And I got to tell you, I am looking forward to the benefit of all of this rain. After living in Central Oregon for 10 plus years, uh, I am blown away by how much it rains here. And after being here almost 3 years, I you would think that I would not be surprised, but I am still surprised. And this is crazy rain. And I people are like, "Ah, well, you live near Seattle. It rains all the time in Seattle, right? So what's the big deal?" No, actually, it does not rain all the time here. I do believe that this is an abnormal amount of rain, and if not, hey, you can certainly it's a live stream, and if you want to educate me about this, feel free. Send me a message and say no. Actually, the winter of 1993, we had 50 inches of rain, and it was amazing. And oh my gosh, I don't think that happened. But if you want to send me some kind of a message and say, nope, this is how it always is, and I don't know what's wrong with you, that's fine. I'm happy. I'm happy to get that feedback. Sadie is right there looking at the screen. If it comes in, she will see it. She'll let me know, and I will appreciate your responsiveness. Enough of the weather, right? Okay, so I I am really thankful to be here. This podcast has been an opportunity for me to highlight Lead Well Pacific, which is my private practice where I do executive coaching. If you want to contact me for executive coaching, there's transformation that needs to happen in your life, and for one reason or another, it doesn't matter what you do, you're just not seeing the breakthrough, and it's time. Then I want to encourage you to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to talk to you about whether or not coaching would be something that would be a benefit to you. And you can reach me at Scott at leadwellpacific.com, or you can call my business number, uh, which is 253-778-6708. I'm happy to talk to you if coaching would be something that would be a help to you. It's also been a platform for a meetup group that I'm very excited to co-host with my wife Holly, the Gathering Place Northwest. You can find out about the Gathering Place Northwest on the Meetup app, or you can find out about it by going onto Facebook and looking under groups for for the Gathering Place NW, and be great to have you join us and be a part of some of our activities. For the winter, mostly what we've done is to get together the third Sunday night of every month. We get together the Gathering Place as well as folks from our Tacoma home group for the Federal Way Vineyard Church. We get together for what we call Praise and Pasta, where I make up the most amazing pasta creations you could ever imagine. And we have a little bit of time to worship God, and more time to have relationship, talk about what's going on, to celebrate what God is doing in people's lives, and to support those that are struggling. We had a great time of prayer at our last gathering a couple weeks ago, and just I felt like some really cool breakthrough for someone in prayer. They'd been really struggling with some physical issues and decisions about what to do with that, and just, enough connection and enough support that the environment felt safe to talk about it. And before the night was over, we had some amazing time to pray and to support that person. And that's what you should expect if you join us, is that we will make time for you, and we will make getting to know you a priority. So want to just put that out there, that if you want to be a part of that, the Gathering Place Northwest is one of those other things that I've highlighted. I did mention that we're connected with the Vineyard Church in Federal Way. I'm a part of their leadership team, and I have an opportunity to preach again coming up in February. Let me see if I can pull up my calendar real quick, and I could actually give you a date if you wanted to join us. If that sounds like something that would be cool for you to do, let me look. It's going to be in February, and I believe, yes, it's February, Sunday the 16th. So if you wanted to join us, I'll be speaking. And at this point, I believe that I will be speaking. 10 o'clock is what time we meet. Sadie's over there giving me sign language for it. Time. So I think I read that right. So she wanted to know what time. So 10 o'clock is what time we start. And I believe at this point, what I feel like is in the hopper for me to talk about is knowing and doing God's will. But more than just knowing and doing God's will, knowing who we are in relationship to God, so that we have a clear picture of what His will is for our life. I had this. I'll just illustrate just for a second. I had this occasion couple weeks ago. Holly and I went to a worship gathering at a local church in Fife. And I really appreciate the fact that they open their doors and do this. It's just a community worship time. And I'm like a kid in a candy store. I love this building, and I love some of the things that they've done. The architecture, the way that they've decorated. I mean, they've obviously got all these windows that are on the side of the building, and for one reason or another, they felt like they needed to cover those up, right? So, but the way they did it is so artful and so cool. They've got these posters, and the posters, are inspiring, and they've got, instead of like an announcement board, they've got a cool poster on the entryway that lays out all the events. And they've got this mini bookstore that basically is just a wall in an alcove. And, if you see a book that you need to buy, you can grab it and put the money right there. I was so caught up with all of the cool things that I was seeing. And I'm looking around, and there's an artist that's painting in the midst of the worship, and she had two canvases up, and one had this just rocking a Jesus image. I was very impressed with it. And then she had a blank canvas, and as we were worshiping, I was like smacked side the head, and it's like, whoa. I want you to just spend time with me. I appreciate that you like all the cool stuff in the building. I appreciate that you like all the cool stuff instrumentally. And I appreciate that you like all the cool things that they're doing vocally, and they're leading worship. But really, Scott, what I want to connect with you. So you see that blank canvas? That's how I want you to approach this time. This is a time that is just for you and I to connect. And I was like, oh, wow. It's one thing, when we say that God loves us because He loves us, and all that, and it's a big thing for me. But when we get it, that He loves us, like for real, and like wants to spend time with us. We get all this stuff in our head, all this drama about all these things we should be doing for the kingdom of God. And he's like, see this blank canvas? I just want you to show up and spend time with me. Just be with me. Like, wow. So, on the 16th of February, I will be elaborating on that a bit and really talking about who we are in God and how that directs us when it comes to doing the will of God. And that should be fun. It'd be awesome to see you there. If you come, you gotta do what it takes to like grab a hold of me and say, I heard you on the podcast. That was so cool, and thank you for inviting me. Whether you like what I have to say or not, just grab me and say I'm here, and thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate that. Okay, so I want to come clean about this weather thing. Why I am fixated on it. And Sadie's like, well, geez, you are fixated on it. You spent like quality time talking about the stinking weather. So here's the deal. At this home group a couple weeks ago, we were sitting around and we're talking about what's coming up next for us. And I was talking to the group about the fact that Holly was going to be gone all week working in Kansas, and that I was going to fly into LA and we were going to meet in LA to go to a conference on healing, the healing ministry of the church that was being hosted at Anaheim Vineyard. Guy, I've recommended Alan Scott's book, Scattered Servants, before. Well, Alan Scott was one of the primary folks that was teaching, and then Randy Clark. Randy Clark has just a huge, long history with the Vineyard movement, and first time in 25 years that he set foot at Anaheim Vineyard. And so I was going to meet Holly down in LA, and we're going to go to this conference. So one of the guys in the group's like, really? Because I'm going to be in LA that weekend. It's like, no. It's like, totally. Well, what are you doing? Well, I'm going to go to a conference on prophecy. Really? And we start comparing notes. It was crazy wild. So we were both going in for the same weekend, flying into LAX. Well, I was flying into LAX. I think he went to a different one. He may have gone to Reagan or Orange. I don't know. But anyway, we ended up literally, Sadie, we ended up on the same street, less than a quarter of a mile away. So I was at Anaheim Vineyard for this thing on healing, and he was at Calvary Chapel, Anaheim, for a conference on prophecy. And literally, if we had both stood out at the ends of the parking lot, we could just waved at each other. We're literally that close. It was crazy. I totally, in my opinion, a God thing. I was in LA this last weekend, which is part of the reason why I'm having all of this reaction to our weather. Because I sort of got robbed. I just laying it out there. I got robbed. We were in LA. It was supposed to be 70, 75 degrees, sunny. Sadie's over there. Oh my God, you got robbed. Are you okay? No, not like that. Not like that, really. It's okay. I'm all right. But robbed as in weather, right? We're in LA. We're in southern stinking California. And I know it's the winter. I get it. But still, what's the deal? We came into crazy fog, which ultimately we learned was a major factor in the Kobe Bryant accident. It was helicopter crashing, and was it 9 people passed away as a result of that? It's crazy tragic. But I get the fog because that's what we came into. It was foggy and gray, and I was like, where's my sweatshirt? It was cold, and I'm in LA. And so when I come home and it's just more rain, it has been difficult for me. I'm just gonna lay it out there. It's been difficult. So anyway, I'll get over it. I'll get over it. So this this healing conference, I I've never been to anything like this. I've been to places where somebody spoke on healing, but this entire event, 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday till I don't think we were done until closer to 10 or 11 on Saturday night. Uh, the entire time, we had four blocks of teaching on aspects of healing. And for those of you that are familiar with either the Vineyard or John Wimber and his ministry, one of the big things that John Wimber did was to basically create this 5-step prayer plan. You know, when you pray for somebody, these are the things you do. It's basic. Like, you know, what's going on? What's going on? And I said 5, didn't I? It's actually 4. Anyway, and we went through that and just so got teaching on each of those aspects, and then during each of those blocks of time, we would have these opportunities to just kind of reach out through the folks that were gathered for the conference and have a time of healing. And I'm not going to lie, I went in, over the summer had just a blessed opportunity to help out some friends in their construction business. And one of my favorite tasks to do when I was helping them was cutting out carpet. I don't know why I took joy in it, but I did. I reveled in taking my sharp knife thingamajigger and slicing the carpet and ripping it off the wall where it's tacked in around the wall and rolling it up and getting the padding out from under it. And I don't know why I enjoyed that, but I did. The downside of it was it trashed my knees. Both knees, I ended up bruising to such a degree that I've had like really horrible nerve response. Like if I kneel down, it just boom, it fires up and it hurts so bad. And like one of the first things that during the first session they were praying for was knees. And so we pray for this, and I'm like, really? He's like, no, try it out. Try it out. Do something that you couldn't do before. And so I'm talking concrete, and I'm kneeling down on it, and it's like, there's no pain. There's no pain. Even this morning, so that was Saturday. This morning, I noticed that underneath my shower that there was some water coming out. I have this old 1910 home and this clawfoot tub that I use for my shower, and so I see water on the granite. It's like these granite blocks is what we have for tile in that room, and so I'm kneeling down to check what's leaking, and I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it for that shock of nerve pain. Nothing. That was pretty cool. I really hadn't experienced that before. And he was talking about how significant it is when you're praying for healing that you try to do something that you couldn't do before, and that you talk about it because it builds your faith and it builds the faith of the person that's praying on your behalf. And the significance of that is that if you have never experienced healing, it's really hard You can be all in your head about understanding the theology around it. Uh, you can be totally there about believing that it should happen, but if you haven't experienced it, it's really it's really difficult to show up with power and authority and faith to believe that it's going to happen. And wow, that was cool because that's why we went there. Being a part of the vineyard, we are the radical middle, the evangelical middle between Pentecostals and and other mainline denominations, where our theology is pretty straight up evangelical, but when it comes to the belief around the gifts of the Spirit being valid and active today, we're all over that. And uh, honestly, my training is more on the conservative side of the evangelical side. So while in my head I believed all this stuff, I'd never really experienced it personally, and so it was just an awesome experience to experience that, um, and to see all of this stuff that was happening. And Holly had a similar experience where her jaw had been aching for like a few months, and boom, no pain. And she's playing with it. She's like poking it, trying to make it hurt. And it's like, stop it. I mean, either it was healed or it wasn't. And it's like, no, I don't have any of that pain, and it's gone. And uh, so it was a cool experience. And then uh, we stayed around for Sunday, and we got to listen to Randy Clark for a second time. And man, just an experience. And I said that my training was very conservative evangelical. Uh, that's because I grew up in a very out there Pentecostal environment. I grew up in a Pentecostal environment where we were at church 3 days a week, uh, and that was our life. And when I was getting ready to go to school, uh, I needed freedom, and I also needed something different. And so instead of coming up here to Washington to go to our denominational school where all of my friends went, I went to a local Baptist school. I'll be a missionary to the Baptists. Um, and in fact, it was just the opposite. They taught me about where there were some gaps in my belief system about faith. Uh, Others would say it's not a gap. Others would say, no, that's just your theology. And the theology that I grew up in was one where your salvation was something that was it was temporary, and it was situational based on your holiness and your rightness with God at that moment in that time. And as many of you know, that's one of the core foundations of Baptist theology is uh, it's really that no, God called you and elected you way way before the foundations of time, and uh, once you have answered that call, once you've received Him, you're you're locked in, and your salvation is not something that can be torn away based on your behavior. It's God's thing. It's not your thing. And so that was an awesome thing for me to experience. But where I was headed with that was, growing up in that Pentecostal experience, everything worked to a crescendo, right? The music started out, got your attention, it moved to a place of contemplation and preparation for the pastor to come in. The pastor preaches a sermon that if you noticed, you would see would be rising in volume towards the end, and there would be a call to action, and it would grip you. I could graph the 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 uh, the experience and the energy level. And so here I'm at this vineyard conference on healing, and crazy amazing things are happening, and there's no drama. not 1 ounce of drama. There's no hyping this up. It's low key. It's like just conversational. So this is what we're going to do. All right. Does anybody have this? All right, raise your hand. Okay, cool. All right. So people around you, I want you to do what we talked about. Check in with what's going on. And let's move in a direction of prayer. And okay, cool. So how many of you experienced something different as a result of that prayer? And it's like all over the place. You know, there were at least 1,500 people at this conference, and by the end of Friday night, they had people that had an encounter with God and what they believed was a healing encounter with God come up to the front, and all the others that hadn't to stay in their seats. Literally 2/3 of that 1,500 people that came for that conference were up front. And neither Holly or I went to this conference for healing. That was not our intent. We really didn't understand that was what was going to be going on. We went to learn about healing. And then to be in that space of, well, really the way that you learn about it is you do it. And as you go about doing it, guess what? Sometimes it gets done to you. And that's what happened. And we experienced it. It was like it was like very much like going to school, and the teacher teaches, and then you practice it, and then it gets graded. And it was an amazing experience. Over 2/3 of the people that were there for that conference, of 1,500 folks, had a healing encounter over the course of the day. I say that for the second time to emphasize how cool that is. That God is still intimately invested in your life, my life. It isn't about something that happened 2,000 years ago that locks us in for an opportunity to be with God tomorrow. It's about today. It's about relationship with God today. Living and breathing where you are, whether that's at home, whether that's at work, whether it's at school, whether it's sitting in the hospital. God wants to encounter you where you are today. Period. And wow, that was cool. And yeah, no, there's nothing else to say. It was just cool. It blew my socks away. And I appreciate you joining me on the podcast so that I could share this experience with you a little bit. Some of the folks that listen to the show, you got here because of business, not because of faith. Some of you got on the show because of faith, not business, but your faith may not be Christian. I've been really clear up front from the very beginning. This is not what I would consider a Christian show. This is about a show about how faith shows up in our lives, whatever that faith might be, and then how it really shows up and drives who we are in the work we do and how we show up in the world that we live in. And so this may be a little bit of a heavy episode talking about my faith and a particular experience, an aspect of my faith that you may never have experienced before. And all I would ask is that you just be open and be sensitive. Find a space to be quiet and reflective, and just check in. Does my faith allow for God as I get God? Does my faith allow for God to love me? And does my faith allow for God to do cool things in my life today? Sit with that for a few. and I'll see you next week. Thank you for joining me on the show.